Commander Wei was renowned throughout the kingdom, not merely for his skill in battle, but for his unwavering wisdom. Legends had grown around his leadership, whispers that he could read his opponent's minds, anticipate every strike, and turn any ambush to his advantage. Yet, few knew the secret to his success. An ancient text he had studied since his youth, The Art of War by the expert strategist Sun Tzu. It was not just a book to him but a philosophy, a guide to seeing through the chaos of conflict into the very heart of human nature.
As the autumn dawn broke, Commander Wei gathered his soldiers on the edge of a forest clearing. A cold breeze stirred the trees, scattering leaves like confetti across the dew-dampened earth. His soldiers, eager but wary, shuffled in disciplined rows, anticipating a day of rigorous drills. But Commander Wei had something different in store for them. Today would not be about wielding swords or practicing formations. Instead, he would teach them how to fight without lifting a blade.
Wei raised his hand, and the murmurs among his soldiers stilled. His gaze was steady, his voice clear as he spoke. "Today, we learn the art of subtlety," he announced. "You may know how to attack, how to defend, how to wield a weapon. But do you know how to win without fighting? Do you understand that the strongest warriors are not always those who strike first, but those who listen, observe, and adapt?"
The soldiers exchanged glances, intrigued. Their commander's methods were legendary but often unorthodox. Wei gestured to the ground, where he had arranged stones and sticks to represent two opposing armies. His voice carried through the still morning air as he laid out a scenario. Two forces meeting on a narrow strip of land flanked by a river and dense woods. One group of soldiers would play the defenders, tasked with holding their ground, while the other would function as the attackers.
In the first round, Wei directed the attackers to launch a direct assault. The result was chaotic. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, and though the attackers finally overcame the defenders, the victory was costly. Wei called for a halt, observing his soldiers as they caught their breath, processing the mock battle's intensity.
"A hollow victory," he murmured, his voice low but carrying to every ear. "One that leaves your own forces diminished, your strength eroded. In the true art of war, we seek not just victory but a victory that preserves us. Do not mistake bravery for recklessness. Sometimes, the boldest strategy is patience."
With that, he instructed them to reset. This time, he advised the attackers to employ a different tactic, to feign retreat, to give the impression of weakness. "Appear vulnerable," he instructed. "Tempt your enemy into believing you are theirs to capture." And so, the attackers, feigning exhaustion and retreat, lured the defenders from their fortified position. Overconfident, the defenders advanced, eager for an easy win. At the last moment, the attackers turned, striking from all sides, swiftly surrounding their foes. The victory was clean, decisive, and with minimal losses.
Wei watched his soldiers' faces light up as they understood the power of deception. He nodded approvingly. In battle, there is strength in showing your weaknesses and intelligence in making your opponent believe what you want them to. Your mind is as much a weapon as your blade, if not more so.
The day stretched on, the autumn sun climbing higher as the soldiers ran through scenario after scenario. Wei taught them how to exploit terrain to their advantage, using the high ground to observe the enemy, the low ground to shield themselves, the rivers as barriers, and the trees as cover. He taught them the importance of silence, of remaining unseen until the right moment, and the art of appearing strong when weak or weak when strong. Each tactic was more than just a maneuver. It was a lesson in perception, patience, and adaptability. As noon approached, Wei paused the exercises, calling the soldiers into a semicircle around him. He stood among them, not as a commander towering above his troops, but as a mentor sharing wisdom.
"Let me tell you a story," he began, his voice soft but compelling. "Years ago, when I was a young officer, I faced an opponent twice my strength. I knew a direct battle would mean disaster, not just for me but for my men and their families. So, I studied him. I observed his habits, his routines, the way his soldiers marched and rested. I learned that he was proud, that he underestimated me." Wei's soldiers leaned in, captivated, as he recounted how he used his enemy's arrogance against him, staging small skirmishes to irritate but not threaten, luring the enemy deeper into unfamiliar territory. When his opponent finally moved to engage, his forces were weary, stretched thin across treacherous terrain. Wei's troops, hidden in the forests, struck at dawn. The enemy was overwhelmed before they could understand what had happened. Victory had been swift and bloodless.
"That battle taught me that the greatest victory leaves no scars," Wei continued. The highest skill in warfare is to make your enemy's choices work against them, to know yourself and your enemy so completely that, in the end, they fall by their own hand. The soldiers were silent, absorbing the lesson. In Wei's story, they saw a truth that transcended combat. War was not just bloodshed. It was a dance of minds, a contest of patience and perception, a game in which the goal was not simply to conquer but to create peace with as slight damage as possible.
As the sun dipped low in the sky, Wei led his soldiers in a final exercise. This time, he instructed both sides to avoid direct confrontation, to move in silence, to set traps and signals, to feign, maneuver, and negotiate without engaging. The soldiers found themselves strategizing deeply, improvising, and relying on intuition. In the end, the battle ended not with a clash of swords but with one side surrendering in a situation they realized they could not escape. When the exercise concluded, Commander Wei gathered his soldiers one last time. "Remember," he said, "you are more than soldiers. You are thinkers, observers, and protectors. To know victory, you must know yourself, and to know yourself, you must master your mind as much as your weapon." As the soldiers left the field, tired but filled with newfound understanding, Wei remained, gazing at the clearing as twilight settled. He knew the path he had shown them was not just a way to win battles but a way to live. The art of war had taught him that peace was not the absence of conflict but the presence of wisdom, restraint, and a steady heart. And though they were young and eager, Wei's soldiers had begun to grasp the quiet power of Sun Tzu's teachings. They had glimpsed the truth that the greatest victories were those that transformed the warrior, not just the battlefield.